Okay, we are here today to discuss Temperance, and Mel and I have been procrastinating for about half an hour because this card is so full of stuff. It's so intimidating. It's so scary. And it's huge.
One of my favorite cards.
Me too.
And not just because I'm a Sagittarius and this is the card of Sagittarius, but it's just, I love everything about it. It's always been one of my favorites and I want to do right by it, and there's so much there.
And I do too, because this card, I have a personal history with it. I never used to understand it at all, and then it just came erupting into my life a couple of years ago, and, it's become much clearer to me, and it means a lot to me. So, no pressure or anything. Okay. So the title in the Wade Smith card is Temperance, but the title in the Thoth card is Art. And we'll be talking much, much more about that because it's not art like you go to the museum. It's the great art, which is alchemy. So when we get to talking about alchemy, we will explain that further. I've also seen Time, which is an odd one, the Solar Spirit, which will make a little bit of sense when we get to the Kabbalah section, and then the Hermetic titles, Daughter of the Reconcilers and the Bringer Forth of Life.
Yes, so the Daughter of the Reconcilers. What would that mean, the Reconcilers? I think of the two supernal parents, perhaps. And I also think of the two Sephira beneath them. So in some of these cards, not so much in either of these, but in some cards, I think the Golden Dawn cards, there'll be a red cup and a blue cup. Mm-hmm. And so you have the two Geburah and Hesed beside each other. And those are actually right on the side of, so this path is on the central pillar, and it's the balance between those two.
So specifically Chesed and Geburah.
Yeah, I would call them the reconcilers,
So there's the expansive force of Chesed and then the cutting, contracting force of Geburah,
or
Mars.
The severity and the benevolence, if you will, and what reconciles the reconciling force between them of this temperate path in the middle. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the bringer forth of life gets more into the alchemical side of the equation, where this card is like the crucible where it all happens.
Mm-hmm. So if we talk about fire and water first in this card, or in these cards, that will sort of allow us to broach the alchemical stuff as well. So,
force and form. Again, you have, the two pillars on either side.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit in the last episode, in the Hanged Man episode, about how watery the form side is. And, I don't really see that much of an argument for saying that the pillar of force cards are fiery, but force itself is fiery,
right.
So there's the receiving of water and the giving, the sending, transmitting of fire.
The descending spark from above, if you will.
So we have all these references in both cards to fire and water. And maybe the first thing to look at the hands of Art in the Thoth card, where there's a lunar cup in one hand and a fiery, I don't know what you call that,
torch of some
sort in the other hand. And not only that, but look at the hands. So the very figure of Temperance is comprised of opposites.
Yes. They say that it's the king and the queen, or the empress and emperor, transmuted and becoming one being comprised of two that have switched their attributions.
Right. And they are the king and queen that we see in the Lovers card. Gemini, Lovers being the opposite of Sagittarius, Art. So these are opposite cards.
That might be a good segue into the alchemical relationship between the Gemini Lovers card, which we went over in that episode, and this one. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So in that card, we saw the red line and the white eagle of alchemy.
Yes, and here we see they're switched to be a red eagle and a white lion.
Right.
And there's also the Solve et Coagula equation.
Right. So solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. So there are
dissolve
7
and combine.
Right. Yes, combine, nicer than coagulate. Although, it's interesting when you think about it, because we have the sword in the Gemini card.
Right,
and then,
to separate.
Then coagulation of the blood after you, cut. Anyway, so there are 7 processes in alchemy. And neither of us, well, certainly not me. I'm no alchemical expert, but I do know that there are 7 processes: calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and finally coagulation. And the lovers and the, temperance or art card are dissolution and coagulation, the 2nd and the 7th step. So jumping all the way to the final step. And it's not as if, we were talking about this before we started recording, it's not as if there's a 1-to-1 correspondence between these processes and other tarot cards, but you always hear about it with these 2. So the dissolve is represented in the lovers perhaps by the sword of Zion,
right,
which
the division
divides them. And then, but in this one, they're combined into one being.
So the 2 beings of the other card are now, if you will, the green lion of alchemy. She's wearing the green dress, and she's, got 2 faces, one light and one dark, and the opposite arm is one light and one dark on each side. I always think of those 2 figures as being Apollo and Artemis.
Yes, and solar and lunar.
Solar and lunar. So if we get into the Kabbalah a little, I guess we have to jump right into it. The path of this card is, between the Sephira of the moon, Yesod, and Tiferet, the sun. So we have day and night. We have Apollo for the sun and Artemis for the moon, if you will. And here they're combined into one hermaphrodite like creature.
Right. And before we get totally into that, we also see in the weight card the mixing between the 2 cups. And the 1 foot on land and 1 foot on water, which is another version of reconciliation of opposites.
When I see both that, I mean, it's the same message in both cards, but in the weight card, I think it makes it pretty clear that fluid that's mixing is, or could be, I think of it as anyway, an astral fluid. So you've got that path between the moon and the sun. Yesod is where all that astral fluid is, and it's mixing it with I guess you would say the solar fluid and the lunar fluid, or you could say the material world and the astral world, because there's 1 foot on land and 1 foot in the water.
Yeah, I can see that. And also on the weight card, if we're kind of dipping a toe into Kabbalah, you also have, you can think of those as the waters of the moon. Whereas you can see on the angel's head in the weight card, the sun headband, the surgical mirror.
Right. So it's literally the path there, the solar.
It's a literal reference
at the top and the lunar waters beneath.
So if you haven't yet, be sure to look at the Kabbalah diagram, and you'll need it for the rest of this episode. Be sure also to read, when you have a chance, Mel's Kabbalah article sort of laying out how the tree basically works, and that'll help a lot. But temperance is such an important central path on the tree. It's between Yesod and Tiferet, between the sun and the moon, and it's just below the high priestess. And then below we have the world. So it's sort of sandwiched right in the middle.
The middle of the middle path.
Exactly. The middle
Probably
of the middle
most
path.
important path in a sense, because of where it is, right there at the foundation up to the sun. And then the priestess path up to Keter.
Right. Yeah. So, and you can see Keter in the weight card. You can see a crown all the way back behind the mountains in the left side of the temperance card, in that radiant light. It is in the shape of a crown. And I always used to wonder what that was when, 20 years ago, getting started with all this, but it is in fact a reference to Keter, the crown at the top of the tree, way off in the distance, but very much present in the card. Below the crown of Keter are these mountain ranges, which I saw a reference to them as the Vale of Paroketh. So the idea being that, there's the Chesed, Gevur, and Tiferet.
Just below Tiferet, there's that veil, and this crosses that on the middle pillar. So
just the way the supernals are set apart, Chesed, so 1, 2, and 3 are set apart. 4, 5, and 6 are also set apart from 7, 8, and 9, and 10. So
now the death card, the card we just had, also crosses that veil, and that's actually the first card to do so on the Path of the Flaming Sword, whereas this card is the card that does it on the middle pillar, so it's equally associated with that.
And we'll be doing it again,
breaking that veil, if you will,
which we will do again with the Devil card next time.
Yeah, and there's definitely a connection between this card and the Priestess. So the Priestess being associated with Artemis as, the maiden of the silver bow. And then we have this card as like the arrow of the bow.
Right.
And that's pulling in Sagittarius, who in astrology is the sign of the archer.
Exactly. Let's not forget that Sagittarius is a centaur creature, a reconciliation between human and animal.
Yes.
Trying to make that work in a single being. So shall we start in on the bow references?
Sure.
First of all, there's a hidden one in the form of the Iris on the Wade Smith card. Iris, of course, is the, you may have wondered. Yep. If you've wondered what
rainbow.
what that flower is, rainbow. And the rainbow is what you get when the sun is shining through rain.
Right.
So there's that fire and water.
Yes.
Thing.
And it's light. It's there's a lot of light and darkness. Again, just like the Priestess, if you go back to the episode there where we talked about light and darkness, this is also a path that's very bright, diffuse with light, the sun and the moon, the reflected light, and yet there's the darkness of inside that crucible. The sun and the moon, there's another day-night reference.
Yeah. So reconciliation of opposites in the day and the night.
And there's a bit of the dark night of the soul going on too, because we talked about that then, but they call this path the test or the trial.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yes, so when we're talking about bows and archery, there's a very specific phenomenon on the Tree of Life that you should know about. So
we should put up a diagram of that. I think we'll do that in the post.
Yes, absolutely. Because this is a little bit technical to follow in audio, but you definitely need the visual. So if you look at the Tree of Life, at the bottom, you see, the path of temperance between Tiferet and Yesod, and which is associated with the letter Samech. If you look at the diagonals on either side of that path between Netzach and Malkut, and between Hod and Malkut, those are associated with the letter Kof, for the moon path between Netzach and Malkuth.
Which is like a Q.
And then the path from Hod to Malkut is associated with Shin, which is the path of judgment and is associated with fire. So you have Kof and Shin, Q and SH. Then below the temperance card, you have the world card, which is associated with the letter Tau or Tav. So you have Kof, Shin, and Tav. And if you put those three together, you pronounce them Keshet, which means bow. And if you look at it on the path of the Tree of Life, it forms a bow shape.
Right, where the central path is like the arrow being strung, and the two diagonal paths on either side is the, what do you call the string on the bow? You must know.
Bowstring. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But you see those two diagonals and the straight shaft between them.
Exactly. And temperance is right above that. So it's the arrow, Sagittarius, shooting through the bow of Keshet. And, when I first learned that, it just blew my mind, That was just right there, literally spelled out on the tree.
There's also the bow as the rainbow and the bow of promise, the
Ark of the Covenant of God.
The covenant, the rainbow and the cloud, after the flood.
Which is another kind of reconciliation between the divine and the human.
Yep.
Right.
And then I also think, so going back to the bow and Sagittarius, so every one of the 12 signs has a sort of little short saying about what they do. And Sagittarius is, I aim.
I aim, right.
And that, obviously is a reference to the bow and shooting an arrow. And it makes me think of aspiration. I aim or I aspire. You could kind of restate it as.
Yes. There is something about the tension of the bowstring and the act of shooting in this card.
The quivering,
the tension. It is not an easy path. And like, if you imagine yourself, this is something I tell people to do all the time. Imagine yourself like the angel in the weight card with 1 foot on land and 1 foot in the water. It takes a major amount of concentration and physical coordination to maintain that. It is not something you're not just standing there. And that is part of the meaning of this card, that it's the effort required to maintain that reconciliation and balance. Right. You never let down your guard. This card is about the tension of the bowstring before its release. And what's really cool? My last name, Chang, most common name in the world, means the motion of drawing the bow.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my children have a fake little pseudonym they sometimes use. My husband's last name is Tevelde, which is Dutch for of the field. So they, when they need a pseudonym, they call themselves Archer Field. Anyway. So there's another reason that I feel very connected.
You just outed them.
I just outed them. Yes. So let's see. Oh, and there's also the moons above the Temperance, the art figure in the Thoth card. There's a pair of silver crescents that kind of form the shape of a bow, which is both a reference to the path of the priestess above, and the Temperance
of Yesod
card
below.
And of Yesod below. And this whole Sagittarius archer thing, and the bow of Artemis, which is also in the priestess card.
Going back to the, cachette bow. So if you look at those letters, you have the fire letter Shin in the middle, and that makes me think of, so when you look at the Shin card, the Judgment or Aeon card, Aeon card, there's often in that card of Judgment, it's like a crucible. There's like a pit of fire shown sometimes. So it's in between the earth and the moon.
Okay. Yeah.
Between the Tao and the Kaf in the word. Which is sort of cool.
That's kind of cool. Now, as for the letter of Temperance itself, which is Samech, that means like a support or a prop. So again, there's that idea of tension and, of muscular tension, of holding something up, holding that energy. There's something else I was going to say about that, but I can't remember.
The interesting thing about that letter, too, is it's one of the only letters that has a closed loop.
Oh, right.
It's that. Yeah. Mem final is also a closed loop, but, if you don't count the final form of mem, this is the only one that's closed, and it's both a feminine symbol, being an open loop or a closed loop, if you will. But then you think of the prop and the arrow as being very masculine.
Right.
So it's got, that male and female combined into one.
Those two qualities. And, again, the tension that we were talking about is sort of also, represented in the weight card as that quivering between the cups. There's, that wavy thing that looks like an Aquarius glyph that you were talking about before, that's also might represent that sort of quivering.
There's also the meaning of the Samech as anger. And I think of it as the quivering of divine rage.
Yes.
Again, another tension or quivering of the bowstring.
Right. Yes, it's that moment before release of anger or ecstasy. All right.
This is really the path of aspiration. I mean, there's no doubt about it's the going straight up the middle pillar, you start down and below, you're there, and then your next one is you shoot right up to the top.
Right. Right. And this is like, if you don't want to bother with following the path of the lightning flash, you go straight up from Yesod to Tiferet, aiming right for that conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel.
And thinking about it in terms of, the test or the trial, Sagittarius is said to be a sign associated with teaching or teachers, and that brings in, the Holy Guardian Angel terminology. Yeah. And then I also think of if you do that thing where you reduce the numbers into the lower, so the 14th card would be a 1 and 4, would be a 5, which brings you to the Hierophant, which is also a teacher of sorts.
Right, right. And there is, I can't remember which centaur it was who was the famous teacher.
Chiron, right?
Was it Chiron? Yeah. It was Chiron, yeah. Right. Yep. Right. Healer Chiron.
The rainbow itself kind of combines all the elements. So you have, you mentioned the fire and the water combining to form the rainbow, the sun through the droplets of water in the air. But then if you think of a rainbow itself, it's an arc that stretches from the earth to the sky. And then, so then you've got air and earth too. So you've got all four elements in this one symbol.
Which is why the rainbow was
and every
the
color,
sign of the covenant. And every color as well.
Color.
It's all involved.
All four elements in the entire thing is there. And then the rainbow also makes me think of the alchemical phase. So this card follows the death card. And they say that after that blackening phase, sometimes there's a phase called the peacock's tail.
The oily phase. Yeah.
Some part of the putrefaction releases some sort of molecules and get this peacock tail with the rainbow flashing colors.
Right. So while we're talking about alchemy, we need to talk about what's written on the Thoth card, which if you haven't read that before or tried to, it says, Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenias occultum lapidem, or we should do it with the proper Latin V's and W's. Visita interiora terrae rectificando invenias occultum lapidem, which means
the stone. Or you could say the acronym for that is vitriol.
Right. So visit the interior of the earth. By rectifying, which is key, you shall find the hidden stone, which is, of course, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's the Philosopher's Stone.
The ultimate attainment.
The ultimate attainment. And as Mel is saying, the first letters of that motto form vitriol, which we see references to all the time in alchemical literature as a sort of shorthand for the great work of the alchemist. The idea is that you refine what's base into what's precious. And that is not simply a matter of refining lead into gold, but also a matter of refining the alchemist, him or herself, into their greater, better, higher form, which is something that's just different about alchemy from modern science. The idea that it's a spiritual practice, not simply a physical practice.
There's so much of that in this card, that process of purification or, turning yourself into gold, union with the solar, the inner sun, the inner light, and preparing the body. It's like a physical process to prepare the body for that influx of light, of purified light of the sun. And it's directed by will. So then you have the bow again. It's often a symbol of will and direction.
Yeah, and when we talk about reconciliation of opposites, in alchemical terms, that's sulfur and mercury. That's the idea that you work with those two, and through correct thinking and correct process, you arrive at something precious rather than toxic cinnabar, which you can get with mercury.
We haven't talked about the word temperance itself.
Oh my God, we haven't. Yeah.
And a lot of people would see that and think it means moderation.
Yes.
In that sense, you see the wine cups sloshing around, but I like to think of it as tempering the fire and water, the sword that we saw in the Lover's card now being tempered and refined.
So, as you may know, if you have heard a little bit about sword making, the sword is heated, like it's heated to a very, very high temperature and then plunged in cold water repeatedly. This is how they made Damascus steel and Damascene swords. And that's that process of fire, water to create something that's extra hard, extra precious,
extra strong.
And also tempering is a process that we do in cooking, in a couple of different ways. So for example, you can temper a custard, or temper gelatin. So suppose that you are trying to create a gelatin mixture. Gelatin is extremely temperature sensitive. So you want it, when you're trying to mix it with another ingredient that you've prepared, you want them to be the same temperature, but you can't just throw them together because then the gelatin will seize and you'll have lumps of gelatin throughout. So what you have to do is you introduce a little bit, and so a little bit of A into B, a little bit of B into A, and you keep doing that until it's so-called tempered.
Just like this card.
Same thing.
Maybe they're making gelatin in that crucible, in the Thoth card there.
Yeah. Same thing when you're making certain kinds of cakes. When you're mixing dense and light, you have to do the same thing. Or custards or mousses, you have to temper them so that when they mix, they won't destroy each other. And that's exactly what this kind of temperance is. So when you see the temperance card, it doesn't mean stop drinking. It means mix your drinks more carefully. Yeah, I think we mentioned this anecdote in the justice card, the idea that, whereas justice is where you each have your own drinks and they're separate and exactly measured, so nobody gets more of one or the other. In temperance, you mix them together and then everyone gets half. So it's a different kind of equality. It's a union of two parts.
We were talking about crucible in this card. One thing we haven't mentioned is the raven on it.
Oh yes, the caput mortuum. There's a raven and skull.
So that again brings back this card follows the death card.
Mm-hmm. Right. The idea that you have to putrefy in order to create.
Back to that peacock's tail after, or part of Negredo. And the card, this is the Sagittarius card, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, but the exaltation is the dragon's tail.
Oh, the south node?
Yeah, the
really?
South node.
No kidding.
South node of the moon, the dragon's tail. So that's kind of...
Yeah. So as far as Sagittarius
and that's
goes,
a point in your chart of release, in a sense. And again, it makes me think of the release of the arrow.
Right. Now, and it's interesting because, we talked about this being the sign of Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, and then the opposite sign is the Lovers, which is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius, and Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini. So there's like these opposites that are doing their best to make sense of each other. So the astrological minors associated with Sagittarius and Temperance would be the 8, 9, and 10 of Wands. The Lord of Swiftness, Lord of Speed, the Lord of Strength or Great Strength, and the Lord of Oppression. Mercury in Sagittarius is the first one, and this is another one of those interesting ones because Mercury is in detriment throughout the sign of Sagittarius, but rules this face. So again, it has that effect of creating something cool and good within the decan. And you have Mercury in Sagittarius as well. First decan?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a card that should be near and dear to your heart.
It very much is. I think of this card as being the another way of portraying this card, if you were drawing a cartoon, would be the light bulb over the head moment. The swiftness of thought. Yeah. The brilliance of thought that, those flashes.
Yeah, flash of insight. And it's there and it's like flying through. And it can't stop either.
No.
That's the thing about an arrow. You can't just pause it in its flight. So you got to catch it before it's gone.
Exactly.
The thing about this card that I think is interesting is, it's almost like a vector card. It's pure. It just moves. One of the things that I read in 36 Faces about it is that you can construct an amulet for safe travel from this.
That makes sense.
Right? Because it's about speed and lack of obstructions. It's Mercury, it's Sagittarius. So it literally is the arrow flying as fast as it can, unimpeded to its destination or target. Yep. I would think it would also be really good for just for getting bright ideas,
right.
For when
if the arrow is a beam of light instead, the speed of light, traveling at the speed of light.
That flash that you're talking about of insight, like, you know how sometimes you go to bed and you're trying to think something through and you just can't get it, and you're searching for a word or something, and then the next day it just pops up. Yeah. And it comes to you. I remember one writer saying that it's like sending the dog to get it, and the dog comes back with the bone, right? But that's what this is like to me. This idea that, you send the message and the messenger comes back and, hands it over.
Transmitted in this case, the aspect of Mercury as the transmitting force.
Yeah. So, and then for the 9 of Wands,
which is another card that's very near and dear to me, because that's where my sun is.
My
sun is in that decan of Sagittarius.
And in the Thoth card, it's specifically sun and moon in Sagittarius rather than just moon, moon ruler of the decan. So that's especially a good match for you, I would think. So, and the idea that it's strength, great strength. So we have the combination of the High Priestess and the Art or Temperance card in here. And there's something about this card that, I don't know, has to do with perseverance, that kind of strength. I don't know.
I don't really see it as perseverance. I see it as flexibility. The strength of flexibility.
I see what you mean.
The way the yoga practitioner can be stronger than the bodybuilder.
Because of the moon quality. The lunar quality, the waxing and waning and flux and reflux. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Change is stability. That whole doctrine, again, where one who bends and doesn't break is stronger. So there's a sort of a call for drawing strength from your connection with things, from your intuition, not just from sheer willpower. Right. Yeah. I can see that. And then we have the Saturn in Sagittarius, the oppression. Yeah. The heavy burden. The idea that the great works of Sagittarius, the expansive properties, also can come at a cost. But also, I think my favorite 10 of Wands is your 10 of Wands in Tabula Mundi, where you have both the pressure of Saturn and the expansive fire of Jupiter trying to get out of the vessel that contains it. And, and this amble of Saturn sitting on top, blocking the airflow. Yes. And, I think that story of Saturn versus Jupiter is so fascinating always. I mean, expansion and contraction. Yeah, it's like the two of discs as well. Yeah. So those cards are like analogs of each other because they both have that Saturn and Jupiter thing. So in terms of our idea. Except one is a 2, so it's, a more pure beginning force, whereas this one being a 10, it's, it's accentuating the heavy side of it, the earthier, material side of the equation rather than the fiery side of equation. So if you think of it, Hakma versus Malkut. Yeah. So, and you think about whether Sagittarius is happiest, expressing itself as a 10, maybe. Or as a 2. Or as a 2, right. Jupiter is happier as a 2 than as a 10, I guess you could say. You could say that. Yeah. So there's this idea with the 10 of Wands that it's actually associated with the goddess of necessity, Ananke. So I get this card all the time when I've got like 5 million chores to do, and you just have to get through them like one by one, and throwing down a stick one at a time, and just carrying them and struggling for air. Yeah, pulling your weight. Yeah, but I think it's also it's a card that exploits the strength of the previous card. It's like, okay, you're that strong? Here do some more stuff. Yeah, here you go, donkey. Exactly. We also see some divine references in the folds of the angel's robe in the weight card. Right below the neckline, there's a Yod-He Vav-He. There's a tetragrammaton. It's really clear. Get your magnifying glass or something. But it's super clear. It says, you can see the two Heys and the Vav. This one's not just some random rantings from some esotericist I picked up. So that's a reference to tetragrammaton. And then just below that, we have 4 and 3 again, just like we did.
Right, the triangle in the square.
Just like we did in the Hanged Man. So the triangle in the square, that 4 plus 3 is called the septenary. And it could be, divine plus physical world so that would be divine of 3 and the triangle of 3 and the square of 4 being physical matter. And again, that reconciliation between human and divine. Or it could be a reference to the 7 virtues. The 4 cardinal virtues are prudence, temperance, fortitude, and justice. So temperance is one of them, as you see. And then there's the 3 so-called theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity. So it's one way to look at that.
Or it could even be the 2 types of form, a triangle being associated with a feminine, the first form of the feminine aspect, and then the 4 being associated with Jupiter, Hesed, or the first masculine below the abyss form.
Sure.
Again, more male and female combined into one form.
Exactly. And the angel we see, I have heard it said, is Archangel Michael. And you were saying the dragon's tail. Who killed the dragon? Michael killed the dragon. So this is the archangel of that victory, as well as an angel of healing, associated in the Golden Dawn tradition with fire and the south, with his feet in the water. So there's, again, that sort of reconciliation of fire and water. We have the red and the white, the red wings and the white robe, another, red and white are opposites in this particular iconographic language. Again, like the sulfur and mercury and the red eagle and the white lion.
And in the Waite Smith card illustration, we see there the path leading from, the water through the 2 mountains towards that crown.
Yeah.
And again, that's a more repeated path, the goal, the path of aspiration, the going up the middle pillar from Yesod, and the ultimate goal all the way up the middle pillar to Keter.
Right. And what's funny about this card is that it looks really symmetrical, but it's not. If you look at it, it's really off to the left of center. And I've always sort of thought of that as, you can aspire, but you're not there yet. You're always trying. Or perhaps, I don't know, the fact that it's off to the left a little bit, that means that we're all a little bit off kilter. We're all a little bit, sinister. And that righting ourselves will require moving us a little bit in that direction.
In the Thoth card, one thing we haven't talked about are the 6 breasts.
Oh, yes.
The many-breasted Diana of the ancient world thing that she's got going on there.
Yeah, many breasts, 6 of them, because
the Diana of Ephesus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we need a picture of that on the website.
We'll have to put a picture up. She's a statue of Diana with, tons of breasts down her front.
And those breasts there are 6, they're in the shape of the lower 6 Sephirot. So the idea being that you have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. That's the microprosophos. So the smaller face that looks up at the higher face, the long face of Keter.
And then you see the arrow rising up.
Yeah, the arrow rising up. So if you look real close,
there's a tiny, teeny arrow on that. I don't know what it's the central. There's this central thing. She's got the little capelet in the center of that. There's a little tiny arrow
which
rising up.
Which appears to be going right down into the fire.
Yeah, the arrow's going up, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean her
right.
Cape
Her cape's
but the arrow is
blending
up
into
through
the fire.
Yeah,
it almost looks like the glyph of Aries, although
it does. I was thinking
not sure
that
why.
Too. Yeah, why would that be?
Another fire sign. Yeah, I have to think about why, if that is.
Yeah, and the and then she's wearing green, which is the number of the color of fertility in Venus, but also it's the combination of blue and yellow. So there's sort of a lunar solar thing going on there.
Right. And when I see that green in this card, I always think of the Dylan Thomas poem, and it again, it's like that aspiration, that like an arrow, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, drives my red blood.
Beautiful. Yeah, we should put that up too. We should just like basically devote the entire website to temperance because there's so much stuff. What about the bees and serpents? Right. Those are taken from the Lover's card.
From the Lover's card and from the Emperor and Empress.
That's right. So there's that through line from the Emperor to the Empress to the Lovers to
it's really telling a story, a continuation of the story that we saw. We saw the Empress, we saw the Emperor, we saw them combine or separate, but about to combine in the Lover's card, and now we see them transmuted into this, more purified form.
Right. This is the after card.
Yeah, it's all about, the alchemy of the process of tempering and perfection. Myself made perfect, the ultimate goal.
Right. What can we say about the Philosopher's Stone? The idea being that if you had the Philosopher's Stone, a couple things you could do with it. You could
turn anything into gold.
Turn anything into gold. And also the elixir of life is derived from it as well. So you would be able to drink it and become immortal. Forever. Eternal life and eternal riches, basically.
No wonder they were looking for it.
No wonder they kept looking so hard.
It's kind of the ecstasy of spirit, though, It's a very spiritual card. But it's also a physical process, too.
Right.
Strength and will.
Right.
In the earthly body as the crucible.
There's something about this card which, I don't know, there's something about it that has always seemed to me like, there are ordeals associated with it. There is sort of like the thing that draws your greatest strength out of you, but also is hard, that you have to come to terms with, that you have to learn about yourself and become better by dealing with it. So if there's something in your life a lesson that repeats and repeats and
back
repeats.
To that, the test or the trial.
Yeah.
The dark night.
This card represents that. The test that you have over and over again, which you might have in relationships or you might have in your work or something that just seems to happen over and over again. It's like the thing you must learn to reconcile. I think it's different for everyone.
I love on the Thoth card. See these little forms in the corners? I think of them as an illustration of that vibration quality.
So these sort of white line, geometric forms in the corners and on the sides. Yeah, the spring.
Yeah, exactly. Illustrating that quivering.
Yeah.
Colors?
Yeah, colors. Okay. So colors.
Well, blue for Sagittarius in the King scale, and green and yellow, and then, what's the Princess scale?
Dark vivid blue, it says.
More blue.
Yeah, more blue. Yeah.
So blues, greens, and yellows.
Yeah. Plus we have, in the Thoth card, we seem to have some reds as well.
Right, for the red eagle.
And we have because blue is the absolutic path, that means that we are once again dealing with G sharp, which is sounding basically like this. Funny, the last three cards we had, we went G sharp, G and G. G sharp, G natural, and G
green,
sharp
blue,
again.
blue, and blue.
Yeah.
Yes, we had two blues and a green blue.
Yeah, so we'll be moving on from that with the
It makes me think, you ever have one of those toys when you were a kid and it was like a little xylophone and every color was a different tone?
Yep, it's just like that. Just like that. Oh, we have yet to do our smells. And I know you like this one. I actually remembered to bring the natural version of oud wood this time, which is the basis of your Sagittarius perfume, so you'll recognize it.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and this is the one, again, like we were talking about in the Wheel of Fortune card, where it is the tree's response to being infected that causes it to produce this resin, which is so pleasing to our smell. It's got sort of a pruny kind of woody smell.
Of the tree.
The trial of the tree, exactly. That seems sort of apt with this card.
And wood with arrows.
Exactly. So that's why when I make perfumes, I usually I use wood both for earth and for fire because of that sort of volatile, fuel to the fire quality of wood, but also it's growing in the earth. So we can use them in both cases. So we've talked about a lot of esoteric imagery, but all of it sort of contributes to this idea of the reconciliation of opposites, the tension before the release,
the tempering,
the
perfecting,
and
the
refinement,
stone.
the perfecting of the self. And so if you remember one thing from this episode to take away with you from Temperance, let it be that it's not exactly moderation. It's about, again, dealing with these extremes, getting them to talk to each other, finding a way to balance them within yourself, which it seems like something we could all use in the climate we're in nowadays. Okay, I think that's it for Temperance. Did we do it?
We did it.
Oh my God, we're so ready for a drink.
Mix up the cocktails.
That's right, cocktail time. Okay, we will be back next time with the devil, speaking of
cocktails.
Yeah, so bottoms up, folks.